Hey guys, and welcome back to Alex's Flying Club. I am back in the cockpit of a DC-3. If you have been watching any of my previous videos, you know that this is one of my favorite planes, and this is a new version of it for me. I purchased the MAAM-SIM DC-3 for FS9 and FSX, and I hope I'm pronouncing the name of the museum correctly. It's actually a museum that did the design for this add-on, and they based it on the DC-3, or rather the naval version of the DC-3 that's in their collection. And that's the Mid-Atlantic Aviation Museum, I believe. So they shortened it to MAAM-SIM, and I hope that's how they pronounce it too. But anyways, as you can see, this is the United Airlines livery, which comes with the add-on. And it looks really nice, and it's really convenient for me because I'm in the virtual United Airlines. And this add-on, it's a bit old. I think it was originally designed for FS 2004 and maybe even FS 2002. And I'm going to do a quick circuit around the airport, takeoff and land. The engines are already on. This video is more about just a quick introduction to this add-on, and I'll get into the details of some of the procedures in other videos. As I was mentioning, this add-on's a little old, and you can definitely tell. Like for instance, the virtual cockpit is not all animated, and you can't do all the controls via the virtual cockpit. That's why I'm bringing up these panels to do a lot of the procedures. There's the overhead panel that I use, the gear and flaps panel, the one with hydraulics and cowl flaps, and then finally the fourth one that I use is the throttle quadrant panel, if I haven't mentioned that one yet. Yeah, gear, flaps, throttle, hydraulics, and overhead panel. Nevertheless, despite all of these little quirks that I'll get into in future videos, I think this is a neat add-on, mostly because it's based on a real DC-3. It was created by people that are tending to this real DC-3 in their museum and know the flying characteristics, know the procedures, and it's pretty cool because of that. And yeah, I mean, the DC-3 is an old airplane itself. It's quirky. It's got its own quirks, and so I don't mind doing all the workarounds that I've had to do to use this add-on, because one of the cool things about it is the feel of the plane. I love the feel of the MAAM-SIM DC-3. It feels kind of like you're flying this big boat, and I like that feeling in an aircraft and in a car. For some reason, I just yeah, I like that sensation, and I think they convey it well. I obviously haven't piloted a DC-3 myself, but it feels pretty genuine when I'm behind the control column of this bird. So, as you just saw, I took off. The settings for takeoff are 2,700 RPM and 48 inches of manifold pressure, which I've reduced quite rapidly after takeoff. You don't want to keep it at that maximum level for too long. Set the cowl flaps to trail. Flaps are up. Mixture's auto-rich, although I'm not sure if the auto mixture actually works in this add-on, or maybe I haven't set the settings correctly. I've yet to read the manual, so we'll see about that one. And carburetor heat should be set to cold, and the fuel boost pumps should be on for takeoff, and I turned them off, as you saw, immediately after we took off. I'll have them back on for the landing part. And we're turning onto base after I hit about 1,000 feet. And sorry, not base, crosswind leg. And I'm reducing the RPM to 2050 and the manifold pressure to 25 inches and lowering the flaps by a quarter, which I'll do in a second here. This is a circuit that I created based on the manual that comes with the add-on and just kind of my own common sense, I guess. And I'm not sure if this is the correct way to do a left-hand circuit in a DC-3. It's just something I've been using to practice getting used to this aircraft. I find flying these landing patterns really useful for any aircraft in any simulator that I do. It gets me acquainted with the aircraft. It actually helps my general piloting skills, and yeah, I find them pretty fun as a practice exercise. I believe this is in Madison, Wisconsin. This is Kilo Mike Sierra what's the N? Nevada. I forget what the N is in the alphabet here. Let me look it up so I don't look like a complete fool. November. There we go. Anyways, this is the Dane County Regional Airport in Madison, Wisconsin. This is one of my favorite airports because University of Wisconsin is my alma mater, and I like how the airport is close to the city and all the lakes around the city, and you'll actually see the Capitol building that will circle around as we approach runway 36 for the landing. And my interest in the DC-3 has been reignited, even though I've been flying a lot of jets lately. But I've started reading this book called Fate is the Hunter, which is a classic in aviation history. It's written by a pilot that piloted DC-2s, DC-3s, DC-4s. You know, he's flown all those aircraft from that era. And it's really interesting to recount, as he recounts his experiences in all the different quirks of the aircraft. I've also read this article online written by a former DC-3 pilot. It's called Flying the DC-3 on the Line, 1959 to 1968 by Captain Dick Brown. And he flew for North Central Airlines. And really quick read, I'll post the link to this article in the description of the video. And there's a lot of interesting information about how to fly the DC-3 and just the procedures that they used. For instance, how they used to do quick stops on their passenger routes. If they needed to do a quick stop and deplane and endplane passengers, they would actually leave the right engine on, turn off the left engine where the cargo and the passenger door was located. They'd let the passengers come out, the new set of passengers board, and they'd close the doors and restart the left engine again, and they'd be ready to take off in about 5 minutes turnaround time. It's pretty impressive, and it was interesting to read about that. And they would actually do what he described as a rolling mag check. They would recheck the mags before takeoff as they were taxiing to the runway. I thought that was really cool. And some other useful things from that article, he talked about turning the aircraft as it's rolling on takeoff, and he said they would only use differential brake as a last resort to correct for wind and stay on the runway heading. And I've been using that even with low winds. I've been using differential brakes fairly often, and yeah, that's something that's interesting for me to read about because I want to fly this aircraft like they did in real life. And yeah, I'll have to reevaluate my takeoff rolls because I find with the tail wheel locked, using the rudder to control the aircraft, which is what I'm used to during takeoff, is very hard. The rudder in this add-on with the tail wheel locked barely moves the aircraft, and even when you're taxiing, it hardly moves the aircraft left and right. So even with the tail wheel unlocked, so it's yeah, I'm not sure if it's just a limitation of this add-on because FS9 does pose some limitations on this aircraft, on creating a realistic depiction of this aircraft. The article describes the DC-3 as having a barn door of a rudder, and I don't quite get that sense when I'm flying in this add-on, at least during takeoffs. But again, I'm not an expert in any way on the DC-3. These are just the observations of an interested amateur. So the DC-3, well actually first let me just say kind of what I'm doing in this video right now. So we were on the downwind leg. I lowered the gear, turned the fuel boost pumps back on. I kind of went pretty far on the downwind leg, mostly because I wanted to circle around the Capitol building, which you saw off the left wing. And I just turned onto base, and you want to be at 95 knots. And since and at RPM is 2050 and manifold pressure between 23 and 25 inches. I just increased the manifold pressure there, if you saw on my dial, because I'm pretty far from the runway. I should have turned onto my base leg if I were to do what I think is a proper circuit a little bit earlier. But as it stands, I have to add a little more power to stay at 95 knots. And we're going to turn on to final, lower flaps to 3/4. And once we're established on final, we'll lower flaps to full. And then we should be ready to cross the runway at 80 knots, cross the fence at 80 knots, and touch down at 75. So one of the reasons that I come back to the DC-3, even though, you know, flying the jets, the big iron is really fun, is, you know, flying the aircraft in a manual way, you know, the tactile experience of flying, rather than just, you know, putting the aircraft on autopilot. Even though I have been using the Sperry autopilot here, but the DC-3 was kind of right at, you know, the edge of airliner technology, where you know, in the previous era, pilots had to fly, just, you know, trim the airplane and fly with your hands on the wheel constantly. And then after the DC-3, with the jetliners, the autopilots and the flight management computer systems get a lot more advanced. But with the DC-3, it's in an era where, you know, they don't have GPS, they don't have computers, they're navigating with radios and using dead reckoning, and it creates a lot of interesting scenarios, as you may have seen with some of my previous videos, especially the DC-3 rally. So it's just been inspiring to read about it from former pilots, and this era and this aircraft in particular. One could say they're the golden age of aviation, and it required a lot of skill on the part of the pilots. That being said, you know, it also just inspires me to fly those same jets in a more manual way. You know, I'm going to try to have the flight management computer on, but, you know, be flying on my own, you know, with a stick, and turning in the autopilot off and just keeping that course, keeping the vertical profile, and things like that. So yeah, I think overall this add-on, my first impressions of it may not be for everybody, especially in, you know, 2014. It's maybe a bit dated, although DC-3 Airways, the virtual airline that is, you know, exclusively devoted to the DC-3, at least according to their website, a lot of people speak favorably of it, and it seems to be still used by a lot of those members as a preferred DC-3 in the flight simulation community. Although I do want to try the one for X-Plane created by X Aviation. That one looks pretty good, and at least on their website there have been very positive reviews from people in DC-3 Airways saying that this is a really good add-on. So that one, X Aviation DC-3 for X-Plane, which I actually haven't tried X-Plane yet either. But that add-on may give MAAM-SIMs a run for its money. But we will see. For now, I am enjoying this really nicely done DC-3 add-on by MAAM-SIM. So you saw that landing was fairly smooth. I don't know if it's just some of the practicing I've been doing in Cessnas, but the approach was a lot better than I usually have been able to do in my previous DC-3 videos. So after we landed, I just cleaned up the aircraft a little bit, turning off the fuel boost, pitot heat, retracting the flaps, and unlocking the tail wheel. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I'm not an expert in the DC-3 by any means, but I do like this add-on. I really enjoy flying the DC-3, and I hope you stay tuned for more videos where I use the MAAM-SIM DC-3, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the engine start, takeoff, landing, engine shutdown procedures, etc. That are in the checklists, and how I do all that if you are indeed thinking of getting this add-on yourself. And I think all proceeds from this add-on, if you purchase it from MAAM-SIM, they go to support the museum that the actual DC-3 is stored and displayed in. So it's a good use of your money, I think. If you're a flight simulation enthusiast, then you would like the DC-3. Alright guys, I quickly shut down the aircraft here. I'm going to turn off the battery, and I'm going to do an exterior view, and that'll be the end of this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys, as always, in the virtual skies. Goodbye.